From Donald Duck to Curtain Gate and so much more, debate number 2 is in the books, and it was sure something. Chris Christie came to, what do the young people call it, eat and leave no crumbs?
And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on this stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck. Look, I think I've been the only one on this stage who's been clear about this. I vote Donald Trump off the island right now. Every person on this stage has shown the respect for Republican voters to come here to express their views honestly, candidly, and directly. He needs to be voted off the island, and he needs to be taken out of this process.
Oh, and everyone is still seemingly pretty annoyed at Vivek.
A win for Russia is a win for China.
We're driving Russia.
A win for Russia is a win for China.
Excuse me, Nick, you'll have a chance.
But I forgot, you like China. That's why you're
As I said in the last debate, I'll say again, this is no time for on-the-job training.
And what we've seen is you've gone and you've helped China make medicines in China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous for all of us. You went and you were in business with the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million. We can't trust you. God, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say.
I can't imagine how you could say that knowing that you were just in business with the Chinese Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden millions of dollars was a partner of yours as well. It's not nonsense.
So look,
and I will say, aside from that lady from Univision, Nikki Haley was the least likable person in the room.
God, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say. Secondly, on the curtains, do your homework, Tim, because Obama bought those curtains.
Did you send them back?
It's in the press.
Did you send them back?
It's the State Department.
Did you send them back?
Did you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
Oh my gosh.
You get it
You
done.
hung them on your curtains.
They were there before I even showed up at the residence. Ron DeSantis is against fracking. He's against drilling. He's been against. You did it. He always talks about what happens on day one. You better watch out, because what happens on day 2 is when you're in trouble. Day 2 in Florida, you banned fracking, you banned offshore drilling, you did it on federal lands, and you took green subsidies that you didn't have to take.
You know, I honestly expected all of that, but a couple things did surprise me, I'm not going to lie. As someone born and raised in the Dakotas, Governor Burgum made me proud. He answered the questions, he didn't play the BS, he was straightforward and direct, and he made his presence known, and I like that. And as for Ron DeSantis, he landed some punches last night, and he finally took on Trump.
Where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership. And you know who else is missing in action? Donald Trump is missing in action. He should be on this stage tonight. He owes it to you to defend his record, where they added $7.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation that we have. And I reject this idea that pro-lifers are to blame for midterm defeats. I think there's other reasons for that. The former president, he's missing in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that. He should be here explaining his comments to try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing. I want him to look into the eyes and tell people who've been fighting this fight for a long time. Polls don't elect presidents. Voters elect presidents. Right. And we're going to take the case to the people in these early states. We're going to do it in a state-by-state direction. And why? Because as Reagan said in his day, this is our time for choosing. We are not getting a mulligan on the 2024 election. Republicans have lost 3 straight elections in a row. We were supposed to have a red wave with inflation at 9%. It crashed and burned. Not in Florida, it didn't. We delivered it in Florida. And so we've got to choose right. We've got to win. And we need somebody that's going to be able to serve 2 terms. So in January of 2023, they'll be able to address the nation saying, we turned the economy around, we secured the border, and we fended off the threat from communist China. As your president, I will get that job done.
So that needed to happen for Ron DeSantis. He can't afford to tiptoe around the mega landmines anymore. He's got to go for the jugular, and he's got to keep doing it. But was there a clear winner, a clear loser? Here now to help me break it all down is Lita Healthcare CEO Madison Campbell. All right, Madison, obviously we've seen the clips. I know you watched last night.
I did.
I can't stop thinking about that debate. Top line thoughts. Do you think there was a clear winner and a clear loser?
Well, I think DeSantis really stopped the bleeding from the first debate. I mean, that first debate was really killer for him. It was not great. And so while I don't want to necessarily give DeSantis the complete win, I do think that he did a really, really good job.
I think he did a good job too, and I've been waiting for him to finally take on Trump, and I know that it's a precarious situation for him to be in because he doesn't want to make the supporters angry, and you never want to make the supporters angry. He needs those supporters if he's ever going to be the nominee, if he's ever going to hold political office. He needs Trump supporters, but he does have to go after Trump because I think that the amount of time he has spent kind of dodging it or not addressing Trump or saying things here and there but not really going for it, I think that's made him appear weak. And I think if he wants to take on Donald Trump, listen, he is the second in line after Trump in the polls, so he's got to land those punches. I'm glad he did that last night. I have my clear loser. I think it was Nikki Haley. So the first debate, I don't like Nikki Haley, by the way, but the first debate, I thought she actually performed pretty well. And I think that's why you saw her numbers go up because she did a good job. She did a great job with the abortion issue. I thought she was direct. Last night, I know the feminists are going to say you can't attack her for this because you attack women for being bossy and you attack women for being aggressive. But watching her, I think she came off very petty and very unlikable. Did you get that same sense?
I think the name calling, the kind of interrupting was not appropriate. I mean, we have one woman on the stage who's vying, and she's actually been doing pretty well, right? She had a very nuanced take on abortion, which I think is exactly what we need during the primary.
Right.
I think that was very important to young voters, right? Young Republican voters need to see a nuanced approach on abortion, and I thought she did amazingly on the first debate. But this one was very different. It was very different. The interrupting, her comment towards Vivek, I don't really think that that was necessary because, we as women were coming at this as, we're one out of how many candidates that are vying for this. We can't be doing the same thing that Chris Christie was doing with, making a joke like Donald Duck, which obviously, where did that joke even come from? You could tell that he tried to practice it in front of a mirror and even his reflection didn't laugh. Right. That was something that was not hilarious to anyone. And she didn't have to do that, right? She could have had nuanced takes, and then her take on Ukraine I thought was also not really great.
Yeah, that's my big thing. She even piped up. The question was not directed to her, and somebody started saying we shouldn't defend Ukraine in perpetuity, and she had to jump in because that's what gets her most excited is sending more money over to Ukraine. And that's one of the main reasons why I don't like Nikki Haley. But I think last night she just made herself appear supremely unlikable. I tweeted, I thought it was very Hillary Clinton-esque. I didn't like her. I didn't like to listen to her. Her voice is grating to me anyway, but I just found her completely unlikable. I don't think it's going to play well for her. I think she wanted to be like the badass bitch in the room, and it didn't land. Vivek, though, his first debate, he did well, much better than people anticipated because he says all the right things. I mean, the man has got a silver tongue. I mean, he's slick, and he says the things he needs to say, and it sounds great. Last night, though, I think that his people, or in his estimation, he thought the first debate, he came off like a know-it-all, and he came off like a little pompous brat. So I think this one, he really tried to shield himself from that by constantly repeating that, oh, Ronald Reagan wouldn't want us to fight. Ronald Reagan wouldn't want us to attack each other. I don't know how well that played for him. I'll be interesting to see how it impacts his polls. But what do you think? Was last night shaky for him?
I don't think he was a clear winner last night. No. I think in the first debate, it was very interesting to watch him. It was kind of out of nowhere. And you had this guy who kind of reminds me of like a student class president coming up. He's a young guy. He represents a younger voice, which I think is incredibly important. But last night, I don't really think that he had nuanced takes that were necessary. I don't know if I necessarily agree with the birthright, take that he had. I don't think that that's going to necessarily win voters, especially young voters, which is exactly where we need to be focusing on the next Republican primary.
So I see what you're saying on that. I worry, though, that as much as we need to win young voters, I worry that the decimation of the future of our nation by letting millions and millions of illegals abuse the system that way is going to be more detrimental to our voting chances and abilities in perpetuity of eternity than maybe angering some bleeding heart Gen Zers right now and millennials right now. But last night, there was a lot of discussion on immigration. The Univision host, she was really vying for
She was from the Democratic Party, right? They put her there.
She was really vying for illegal immigration. Yes. I mean, I understand that it's important to have that voice. The Latino vote is going to be important. Ron DeSantis did very well with those voters in Florida. But the questions to me were annoying. time and time again, she tried to advocate for illegal immigration and those that are invading our country. At one point, even blaming Americans for the fentanyl crisis, talking about the smugglers being American, probably birthright Americans. But that part did frustrate me. I wonder, though, I think the answers on immigration were good. And I'm glad that none of them tried to play soft on it.
No, they weren't soft on it at all. And I do believe that that is going to be an incredibly important thing that we have to focus on. We have to focus on securing our borders. You know, that is 100% going to be what moves the needle. We're seeing the migrant crisis. I mean, in New York, right? I started my company in New York. I have tons of employees in New York. What's happening on Staten Island is insane to me, you know? And the amount of money, New York is just getting like a taste of what it's like. But what happens when the rest of the country, you know, starts to feel that, right? I'm originally from Pittsburgh. You know, having those folks come in when we're already suffering from lack of jobs, manufacturing jobs are gone. You know, I was just with my family, and, you know, family members of mine are struggling to get a job, you know, even $30,000, $40,000 a year.
Wow.
And those are who we need to be focusing on. We need to be focusing on blue-collar workers, the workers that are here in America that have come here legally, who want to actually, you know, make the U.S. economy better. That's who we need to be focusing on.
And just workers in general, people that are willing to work. I think that the spotlight is going to be on those people in 2024. Another thing, which was not part of the debate, but it might as well have been, is Gavin Newsom. I don't know if you saw his interaction with Hannity post-debate in the spin room, but he makes me nervous for a lot of reasons. I've followed Gavin Newsom very closely over the years. I lived in California for 4 years, so I'm very familiar with him and his policies. I know that they are wreaking havoc on California, but it's really difficult because he's almost like...
he's young.
He's young, but he is... To me, it's like he's got a forked tongue, like he's the devil, and he speaks very well. You know, he speaks well, and he presents his own facts in such a confident way that he makes me very nervous. I've been saying it since January. I think this is a soft launch for his campaign. I do think he's going to be the Democrat nominee, but that back and forth with Hannity last night...
I mean, he did eventually say, no, I wouldn't take the nominee, but you know that's a lie. Like, of course he would.
Yeah, you know, they'll find a way to couch it in, well, I must step up. And they'll find a way to make it some kind of a duty-filled expression of patriotism. That's what I think is going to happen. But he also is cozying up to Trump, which is great for Gavin right now. Yeah. But if it ends up being Gavin Newsom and Donald Trump, I fear for the election, because I think Gavin Newsom is going to get the young voters, as you mentioned. I think that he can rally them for none other than the fact that a lot of them are stupid.
I mean, and there's so many people that are in California that have seen the policies, but do we want the policies that have gone in California for the rest of the country? That's not going to work. You know, do we want his leadership that he's shown in California to be happening what's in New York, or be happening what's happening in Texas? You know, at the borders, we can't have that. You know, so the one fit, you know, of California and his policies in California is not going to fit with the rest of the country.
I agree with you.
I don't even know if it fits in California.
It definitely doesn't fit in California, but it worries me because even Californians tried to recall the man, but then now they so soon forget. And living in California, when you vote yourself a gas tax numerous times, I'm not sure Californians get it. I hope Americans get it. Yeah. But there's a lot of low information people out there that just listen to a soundbite and they think this guy sounds good. That's what concerns me. But you mentioned the young vote, and that's where I want to end with this, because you're the fantastic voice to speak to this. Yeah. For much of my career, I have been laser focused on the young vote as well. Yeah. And I think it's going to be so incredibly important. I'm a millennial. I believe you're Gen Z. Good luck with Gen Z. But I'm wondering what can be done to entice young voters without compromising our principles. Like, for example, young people care about climate change. Well, we're not going to compromise there, right? We're not going to kill great energy jobs because of the green cult. The LGBTQ barbecue rainbow cult. We're not going to embrace transgenderism and all of this to appease the young vote. And so there, and BLM, another thing, we're not going to appease BLM, the Buying More Mansions Club. We're not going to appease them to get the vote. So what way can we do it that resonates without compromising everything we stand for?
Well, I think at the end of the day, you know, past just the social issues, what we really care about is the fact that we are graduating college with an exorbitant amount of debt, and we're unable to get good paying jobs. That's something where I believe that if a Republican candidate can come in and create a plan where we're not going to be, going to college for 4 years or getting an MBA or going and getting a law degree or becoming a doctor, right? We have a massive shortage of primary care doctors across this country. We should be incentivizing those people. We should be incentivizing people that want to go into public service, right? I think truly in order to get the Gen Z vote, we need to unburden them from actually feeling the financial pressures that we're feeling with inflation. And so that means giving them an opportunity to be able to get a good job. It means the opportunity to finally buy a house, right? If we could
That's a big thing. That's a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't afford a house. Like, I'm going to have to get, help, or I'm going to have to save up for multiple, amounts of years. So if we could just have a common sense, candidate that comes in and says, look, I'm not going to talk about the social issues. We'll talk about them later, but let's talk about these major financial issues that you're having. You have debt. You can't buy a house. How can you start a family? Because you can't afford a family with childcare so much. And so the traditional dream of, young millennials or Gen Zers, we can't have that.
Right.
We can't have that at all. And so that's where I think we need to focus our energy.
I think you're right on that. I just worry that the low-hanging fruit is just forgiving student loans, and the Democrats have already promised that. They've already done everything they can, even unconstitutionally, to try to get that through. So that's what worries me, is that a Republican's going to come in and say, here's the reality, and a Democrat's going to come in and say, or we can just forgive your loans. And
which didn't work.
It didn't work, but there's a lot of people, a lot of Gen Zers, and even millennials, who still hold on to that hope, and they still think that eventually someone is going to just hand them money. And that worries me. Last thing I want to ask you, Vivek brought it up last night. Do you think Republicans need to be on TikTok?
Well, I want to go back to the younger vote, right? So when we think about the younger vote, we unfortunately know that those folks are on TikTok, right? Whether or not we want to believe it, those people are getting information about election. They're getting information about different candidates from TikTok. And so we either have to do a better job educating young folks about the dangers of TikTok, the dangers of China, the dangers of the Chinese Communist Party, actually, using TikTok to educate us on things that we, should not be educated on. And we have to also accept the reality that TikTok is being used by a lot of Gen Zers, a lot of millennials. They're getting their primary source of information from TikTok. And so we do have to, use that platform in order to talk to those voters. But overall, do I believe TikTok's a good thing? No, and I believe that it is a proponent of China trying to infiltrate into the United States.
That's what really worries me. I understand the need to be relevant on it. I'm personally not on it. But I know that it's going to be an elephant in the room, because we are going to need to reach these people some way, somehow. They're not, unfortunately, a lot of them are not watching Fox News, and they're not listening to conservative podcasts. Though I do think that podcasting is a feather in our cap, and I do think that it's something that conservatives need to do more of, because young people are also listening to podcasts. But I appreciate you. You are, a rising star in the conservative movement. I know that you have plans to run in the future, and I'm very excited for you. We need more young voices. So
thank you.
God bless you on all your success. Thank you for being in Nashville.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you after the next one.
Thank you so much.
And now for the moment I've been waiting for all week. It's time to crown some losers. Here we go. What do Hillary Clinton, Colin Kaepernick, and Christmas fruitcakes have in common? Few people like them, and they will just not go away no matter how much we all want them to. But this week, Colin Kaepernick's desperation for spotlight and a job reared its pathetic head yet again, as he is begging the New York Jets to let him be a part of the team's practice squad. He even penned a letter to the organization expressing how honored and grateful he would be given the opportunity. He hasn't played since 2017, but he still feels his abilities are akin to a Mahomes or a Hurts. I gotta hand it to him, he's confident. But what I still can't figure out is why he'd want to be a part of the league he has compared to slavery. By his own estimation and analysis, not mine, he is basically begging the NFL to enslave him. Football is over for Colin, just as presidential hopes are over for Hillary. And I would quite frankly like to see them both join Dancing with the Stars like all the other washed-up celebrities and just call it a day. But speaking of dancing, number 2 on my list this week is Britney Spears. And while I don't necessarily deem her a loser, I am worried for her, her sanity, and her dogs. Here she is seemingly practicing to work at Benihana. Now, this isn't normal behavior, and I'm very worried for her. I truly am. Something is not right here. Whether those knives are real or fake, it really doesn't matter. I will stop short of saying she needs to be placed back under her conservatorship because you can't force people to get help. She needs to come to that conclusion on her own, and I hope she does as soon as possible. But moving on to my final loser this week, this thing called Meatball, who is apparently a social media influencer with over 600,000 followers. Now, Meatball decided to get a little extra content for her degenerate followers this week when she live streamed and encouraged the mass looting and rioting that took place in Philly a couple nights back. Watch.
Everybody must eat! Everybody must eat! Everybody must eat! Yes! Everybody must eat! Uh-oh, look, here come more people. Let's go. 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 Uh-oh, the cops. Look! We're mamas. Mamas, the cops. Oh, my God, my sis. Mamas! Mamas!
Just lovely. Well, these teen thugs smashed their way into several stores and businesses and eventually made their way to the Apple Store, where they stole the new iPhone 15s. Now, AOC famously told us this kind of behavior, the looting, stealing, destroying, is all necessary because these people are just trying to feed their families. Well, in that case, iPhones must be a tasty and nutritious treat. Smash and grabs, mass looting, teens attacking one another and seeking to hurt and even kill complete strangers for fun. This is the new normal. Is anyone surprised? The message went out in 2020 loud and clear. The death of George Floyd gives everyone a free pass to do as they want and call it justice. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if brick and mortar stores cease to exist in 10 years. I don't care how loving and liberal these corporations want to act like they are. None of them can sustain this level of looting and shoplifting. So get ready to be buying everything online, probably with the government's digital currency. All of these things that appear to be out of control, mishandling or mismanagements by Democrats, you know, the crime, border invasion, the collapsing economy, and unaffordable reality of just existing are actually not whoopsies. They are calculated and all part of the plan. With chaos comes control. Never forget that. Those are my losers of the week and my final thoughts from Nashville. God bless and take care.